Cumbria's beauty is timeless, a place of dreamy lakes, crystal streams, riverside woodland, slate cottages with rose gardens and high fells. If you're looking for a place to walk, where better than here? And if you're looking for a long distance walk, look no further than the Cumbria Way, which starts here at Ulverston on the peaceful shores of Morecambe Bay. Strolling around Ulverston, you'll come across the statues of the famous comedy film stars Laurel and Hardy. Stan Laurel was born in the town before making his name in America. This friendly market town of Georgian houses and shops and little ginnels threading between the main streets shelters beneath low hills, one of which is topped by the Sir John Barrow Monument, a replica of the Eddystone Lighthouse. The way begins at the Cumbria Waymarker Monument, an obelisk filled with all the geological rock types you'll encounter along the way, from the limestone of the coastal hills, through the Borrowdale volcanics and the Skiddaw slates, to the red sandstones of the Eden Valley at the end of the walk. The first morning is spent traversing undulating pastoral countryside. Soon there are tantalising views of the Coniston Fells, which loom larger and become more exciting with each step. You climb to the Blaywith Fells, Lakeland in miniature, with little rock peaklets and small secluded tarns. From Blaywith, the way descends to Coniston Water and continues with a delightfully easy promenade along the shoreline. On this lake, Donald Campbell set his water speed records in the 1950s and 60s. This pursuit would eventually lead to his death when his Bluebird speedboat crashed. On a more relaxing note, maybe there's time for a boat trip on Coniston's famous gondola. Finally, your first day ends and you arrive at Coniston and your bed for the night. The bustling village at the foot of Coniston Old Man was built on the prosperity of slate quarries and copper mines, but today these industries are largely dormant, replaced by tourism. A new day. The official way takes in pretty valleyscapes en route to Great Langdale, while the mountain route described in my book Walking the Cumbria Way will tackle the Coniston Fells from nearby Dover. On the official route you'll visit two fine waterfalls, the first Culwith Force, which lies deep in the woods of High Park, and not far beyond where the bounding river Brathay, squeezed by surrounding hard rock crags, tumbles in the powerful whitewater torrents of Skelwith Force. Above the Force, the river Brathay calms down and leads gently into Great Langdale, heading towards the lake and village of Elterwater. Maybe it's time for afternoon tea in Elterwater's popular Britannia Inn. You may well meet some of the mountain wayfarers here, for the high and low routes converge in the village. The mountain route takes you up from Torver to the Coniston Fells. At Goatswater shown here, things get spectacular, with the shadowy climbers, cliffs and gullies soaring above the lake. It's a steep climb to the pass, but this gives access to one of the finest pure ridge walks in Lakeland, rising from the shoulder of Brim Fell to the Coll at Lever's Hawes. More easy paths climb to the cairn on Swirl Howe, over 2,600 feet above sea level. The high route continues in splendid fashion over the airy summits of Great Carrs on the Wetside Ridge, before descending into Little Langdale. Both high and low routes end up at Dungeon Gill beneath the majestic Langdale Pikes and Bow Fell. Sheltering beneath the crags and cliffs are two inns, the old and new Dungeon Gill hotels. They wait to refresh your already soaring spirits. So far, the Cumbria Way has chosen pretty routes through valleys, by lakes and tarns and across low wooded hillsides. But today, the official way tackles the 1500-foot stake pass which bars the way out of Great Langdale into Borrowdale. On reaching the cairn at the top, you look back across a strange sea of grassy hummocks. These are moraines from ancient glaciers. It's wild country, and Langstrath, the valley that leads you into Borrowdale, is uninhabited and just as wild, with bare stony mountains rearing up either side of the fast-flowing Beck. And then, in total contrast, comes beautiful Borrowdale, with its luxuriant greenery and the bounding River Derwent. Rosthwaite sits amongst the pretty pastures, beckoning like Homer's sirens to Keswick-bound wayfarers to stop and rest. Those with the willpower to resist round the shores of Derwentwater, with the magnificent slopes of Skiddaw urging them ever onwards to bustling Keswick. Back in Great Langdale, the mountain walkers tackle the slopes beneath Bow Fell and the climb to the high pass above Rosset Gill. Here they look forwards to their next objective, Allan Crags. The summit of Allan Crags is rocky, with views back to Bow Fell seen on the left and Esk Pike. The onward route to the romantically named Glaramara follows a sparsely cairned path across grass slopes scattered with rocky outcrops and shallow pools. After relatively low-level walking down Borrowdale, there's one more twist in the mountain route. Having reached the valley, it climbs back up to Walla Crag. You may well be cursing the author until you see the view from the rocky perch across Keswick Village, Derwentwater and Bassenthwaite Lake to the majestic Skiddaw. The next morning you can stock up in the shops and markets of Keswick before setting off once again for the hills. Today you leave the Lake District behind. As you round the corner over the shoulder of Lonscale Fell into the valley of Glendoraterra, you can take one last look, one magnificent last look southwards over the rooftops of Keswick, across the blue expanse of Derwentwater to the craggy peaks of central Lakeland. But you look forward too. Glendoraterra is a splendid valley dividing Skiddaw and Blencathra, and the narrow balcony path that heads north beneath Lonscale Fells crags will take you to the wild country back of Skiddaw. The bustle of Keswick transforms into relative silence. The youth hostel at Skiddaw House, which is sheltered by wind-warped larch trees amongst the heather, is splendidly isolated, ideal for those who want to break up this day. Eventually the way comes to the stone bridge over Grainsgill Beck. Here the official route will climb to its highest point over 2,000 foot above sea level. Old miners' tracks and paths lead upwards, past the old Wolfram mines to the ridge, where Lengy Hut is an ideal refreshment stop, though it's little more than a shed with seats. High Pike is a splendid viewpoint, and there's a view indicator to emphasise this. Beneath the moorland slopes are mile upon mile of Cumbrian plains, leading the eye across the Solway Firth to Scotland. Unless the weather is inclement, Skiddaw is a must for mountain walkers, who will take to the slaty paths past the Howell Monument, which is dedicated to three shepherds from Lonsdale. Gradients steepen on Jenkin Hill, and maybe a few souls will be wishing they had followed the official way, but the difficulties are short-lived, and there are excuses for stopping for a breather to look back on Derwentwater and the Lakeland Fells. Above Jenkin Hill the gradients ease. Our route leaves the main tourist path for a short while to climb Skiddaw's Little Man, where there are early summit ridge views. Soon you'll find yourself at the main summit trig point, some 3,000 foot above sea level, and those early toils will be forgotten. The onward ridge stretches northwards, taking the route across Bakestall down to the top of the Whitewater Waterfalls. Here you'll follow the Skiddaw house track for a short while. Now you're confronted by the wild heather hills back of Skiddaw. Great Calver comes first, then the Knot, before joining the official route above Grange Gill for a climb to High Pike, the last summit of the day and of the whole walk. All paths meeting Beck, a fascinating and peaceful farming community, once prosperous from mining, but now reaching out to tourists. The village church was established in 1112 and dedicated to the 6th century preacher St Kentigern, also known as St Mungo. In the churchyard lies a gravestone with elaborate carvings of a hunting horn and whip. This is the resting place of John Peel, 1776 to 1854, a hard-drinking local farmer and huntsman who is immortalised in the words of a song, Do You Ken John Peel? On this last day, the Cumbria Way says goodbye to the Cumbrian Fells and heads for the city. As you set off past Colbeck's church and go over the nearby Beck and into the woods of Parson Park, you might feel like the best is behind you, but maybe it's not. The River Caldew will be your friend today and will lead the route easily northwards through the county. In the early stages there are fine views back across the undulating pastures to the Colbeck Hills. This is still beautiful country. The Caldew meanders lazily through pastures and woodland. Every so often the way comes upon an ancient bridge over it. There are no hills left, but this is a leisurely stroll, especially when the sun's out. Rose Castle, seen across the expansive fields to the west of the River Caldew, was first built for Bishop Walter Clerk after land was gifted to the church by Henry II in 1230. It's been the palace of the bishops of Carlile ever since. The Cumbria Way diverts from the Caldew briefly to round the woodland and majestic buildings of the Limehouse School. After reacquainting itself with the river at the White Bridge, the way enters the last village en route, that of Dalston. You're now just 6 miles from Carlile. Carlile's Cathedral quarter is truly magnificent, and like the castle it's built out of sandstone. Founded by the Augustinian canons, the priory became a cathedral in 1233. Dominican and Franciscan friaries were also established close to the cathedral, but were destroyed in 1536 during Henry VIII's dissolution of the monasteries. You'll be able to see their crumbling remains in the grounds as you pass through to Journey's End at the market square. Busy shoppers will pass you by, oblivious to your triumphs, but as you touch the market cross you'll know that this has been a truly wonderful journey, and recent memories of your Cumbria Way will come flooding back.